Hello everyone, in this session I'm going to create another Windows form to input two integers and to display the sum of those two integer values. First of all, I'm going to change the name of this form. I'm going to select the form and here I have properties. Out of these properties, I can change its text as header. I'm going to change its name also. Here I have name as form1. I'm going to change its name as FRM header. These two properties represent two different things. For an example, if we consider the property text, it allows us to modify the name that appears on our control. For an example, previously we had form1, but now we have header here. And when we change the name of the control, we can easily refer to that particular control. Let me select two labels to introduce the numbers. I have label here. And I'm going to change the name of the label as LBL number 1. And I'm going to change the text of the label as number 1. When I change its text, I can clearly see that new name appears here on that control, but when I change its name, I can't see anything on the screen as the name that I have already used for this name option. But we will be able to use these names when we use the control in the code file. And I'm going to use another label. I can simply drag and drop a label here. Again, I'm going to change the text of this label as number 2. And I'm going to change its name as LBL number 2. Now we have two labels. First label to represent number 1. It is just a label that allows user to understand what we expect from them. This number 1 has the name LBL number 1. It is a label, therefore I have used the prefix LBL. And for number 2, I have text as number 2, which appears on the screen, and the name is LBL number 2. That means here again we have a label. We have used prefix LBL. Since it is to represent number 2, I have used LBL number 2. Now I need two text boxes to obtain integer values from the user. Therefore, I'm going to drag and drop two text boxes from our toolbox. Here I have text box. I can simply drag and drop a text box here. I can align that properly. And again, I'm going to change its name. For this one, I'm not going to change its text because I don't want to show something on that control. Therefore, I'm not going to modify the text. Instead, I'm going to modify its name because then we can easily refer to that text box later when we are working with our code file. To name this text box, I'm going to use the prefix txt, which allows us to easily recognize that this is a text box. I'm going to use txt number 1, and I need another text box to input second number. And again, I'm going to change the name of that text box as well. Let's say it is txt number 2. Now I'm going to use a button. Here we have button here. And for the button, I would like to change the text as add, and I'm going to change its name as btn add. For each and every control, you have prefixes. For an example here, for labels, I have used LBL as the prefix for its name, and for text boxes, I have used TXT as its prefix, and for the button, I have used BTN as its prefix, and for the form, I have used FRM. These prefixes represent the type of the control. You don't have to use the same, but it allows us to easily identify which control we are going to use, and it is really helpful for us to modify our code. Finally, I'm going to add another label here for the result. I'm going to change its text as result, and I'm going to change its name as LBL result. I'm going to use another text box to show the result, and the name of the text box is txt result. Now we have completed our form. If you would like to modify your design a bit, you can use the properties window here for each and every control, and then you can modify whatever the controls you require to modify. For an example, if I want to change the font here, I can use another font type, or I can change the font size, let's say 10. For this one also I can change the same. Okay. There are many options. You can change its font color, you can add an image, and you can do so many modifications to your controls. Now let's see how we can add functionality to this form. We have finished our design, and now we are going to move to our code file to add necessary functionalities to this form. Now I'm going to add functionality to this form. To add functionality to this form, I'm going to double click on this add button. Then I have a generated click event here. What I want my form to do is, I'm going to take two inputs, one for the first text box and the text box. And then when I click on this add button, I'm going to take the sum and display the result on this final text box. When we add the codes here in this code file, we will have to refer to the names that we have already used for these each and every control. For an example, to take the input from this first text box, we will have to refer its name txt number1 dot text. Txt number1, it appears here, so I'm going to use it. dot text. This means that we have number1 dot text with us now. The other value I need is the second number, which is from txt number 2. I'm going to use txt number 2 dot text, and now I have both the values together. And what I want to do is I want to add these two values and assign the result to txt result dot text. The idea behind this code is we are going to take the text value from txt number 1 and we are going to take the text value from txt number 2 and then we are going to add those two values together and assign the result into txt result dot text. Txt number 1 is the reference to the first text box which we input number 1. Txt number 2 is the reference to the second text box that we use to input number 2, and txt result is the text box that we use to display the result. Dot text means the text of that given text box. For an example, txt result is the text box. Txt result dot text means the text value of the result text box. And here txt number 1 is the text box. Txt number 1 dot text means the text value of the number 1 text box. Txt number 2 is the text box for number 2, and txt number 2 dot text means the text value of that text box. But as we all know, we can't add two text values together as a number. Therefore, what we need to consider is the numeric value of the values that we have within each of these text boxes. To convert this first text box value, what we are going to do is we are going to use int 32.parse and then I'm going to use parentheses to cover txt number 1 dot text. Here again, to convert the text value of txt number 2 text box, I have to use int 32 dot parse and I have to use parentheses around the text box. Now we have another issue, that is when I use int32.parse txt number 1 dot text, we have a number value here, and again when I use int32.parse txt number 2 dot text, here again we have an integer value. We have two integer values together and we have added those two integer values. That means the result is in the form of an integer. But here the result text box contains text value. Therefore, what we have to do is we have to convert this integer value into a text before inserting that text value into this result text box. To do that, we will have to select the whole set of codes and then I'm going to use .toString method, and at the end we will have to use the semicolon to end our instruction. Now what we have done is we have input the values from txt number 1 and obtained the text value of that, and here we have input number 2 from txt number 2 text box, and we have considered its text value because text boxes will always hold text values, but since we need to add the integer value together, we will have to convert that text into an integer using int32.parse. Here we have used int32.parse for txt number 2, and here we have used txt32.parse for txt number 1, and final output of this expression will be an integer. Therefore, to set that into our result text box, we will have to convert that back into a text. Therefore, we have used toString function. Finally, we have a string result for this side. That means we can easily assign that text value into the result text box. Now let's run the program and see our result. I'm going to add number 1 as 125. I'm going to use number 2 as 100. I'm going to click add, and the result is displayed in this result text box.